Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. In this part 2 video, we will continue looking through the bikes from the Martin Moto Modern Classics Ride-In. In this video, we'll be looking at the classic European motorcycles that were at the show. There were lots of them there, and it was a real treat to get to see all of these different bikes in one place at one show. The Martin Moto Modern Classic Ride-In is one of my favorite bike shows. They have such a good variety of motorcycles there. This year it was a wonderful turnout. And if you're into classic motorcycles at all, I would highly suggest putting that show on your calendar. And Martin Moto is really a cool place to visit. If you've never been there before, they have a huge showroom with tons of motorcycles. They have an upstairs that has a section with classic motorcycles, and it's just a really neat facility. In this video, I'm going to go through the motorcycles by brand and talk a little bit about each one. The first brand we'll look at today is BMW, and the first bike we'll look at is their R65. The R65 was one of the smaller BMWs, and these bikes made great daily transportation. The R65 was a very cleanly styled motorcycle. It has some of the 80s funk to it and the styling, and I think these are just a neat machine. The next bike up here is BMW's R75/5. This is a little bit older model. It also looks like it has a larger gas tank for longer range. I think that was an option on these bikes, although I am not a BMW expert. This is another cleanly styled, standard style BMW motorcycle, and it was a real treat to see it at the show. The next bike up is the more modern R75/6. This one has the R90S style fairing on it. This one also has the BMW hard bags on it. And with the R90S fairing and the bags, it actually transforms the bike into a bike that you can ride all day long and you can ride at higher speeds. And that brings us to the R90S. This is probably the most iconic BMW ever made. The R90S was successfully campaigned in racing when it debuted. And to me, it's kind of shocking how well it did, considering that the engine performance on this is nothing earth-shattering, but they handled very well and they had very good brakes, especially compared to the competition at the time. This is another beautiful BMW that was there. I think this is probably the oldest BMW that was at the show. And unfortunately, I'm not familiar enough with the BMW models to know exactly which one this is, but I thought this was so cool. I thought the swing arm style front end on this bike was really unique. In addition, the restoration on this bike was beautifully finished, and it was really just a piece of mechanical artwork. The next bike up here is the BMW K75S. This bike is somewhat unique in the way that the engine is positioned in the frame. It is a 3-cylinder engine, but it is laid on its side, and it is mounted longitudinally in the frame. I've always thought the styling on these was really cool, and these make great light-duty sport touring machines. The next brand we'll be looking at is the Triumph motorcycles. There were quite a few Triumph motorcycles at the show. First and foremost, I thought this green Bonneville was just absolutely beautiful. I've never seen this color on a bike in person, and it was really eye-catching. The restoration on this bike was done very well, and it was just a treat to see it. Moving on, we have a Triumph T110. This bike is from 1961. It is a 650cc motorcycle. It has a single carburetor on it. And this is one of the earlier nacelle bikes. So it has the headlight surround on it that is color matched to the body of the bike. My friend Rob brought this one to the show, and it was just really cool to walk around and see all the little detailed differences between this and some of the later Bonnevilles. Two absolutely gorgeous custom Triumphs were at the show. I was able to talk to the creator of these bikes. These bikes are very far from stock, but he was able to tie in the look, and so these bikes look so cohesive from front to back. The level of craftsmanship and the level of detail and the level of work that has gone into making these bikes is just outstanding. The first one up is a chopper, and again, if we look at level of detail, even the lettering on the tires is painted to match the bike. All of the fasteners are painted on the inside of them to match the orange of the bike. And wherever you look on this bike, it's like mechanical artwork. If I had to ride one, I definitely would pick the second bike up here. These are both true show bikes, and everywhere you look, it has so many nice little details on it. These were really standouts at the show. Moving into the more modern Triumphs, I really like the color scheme on this T100. I thought the red and black looked really nice, and I like the chrome engine cases as well. Here's another modern classic Triumph from the early 90s. This is the Trident. It was one of the first models of the resurgent Triumph motorcycle brand. I remember the first time I rode a Triumph motorcycle, and it was the Speed Triple of this generation. After reading all the glowing press on this bike, I was a little bit underwhelmed by the performance, but it was still a decent standard style motorcycle. I do like the green and cream color scheme on this one. I think it's a pretty bike. I also like the green on this Triumph. It is a Tiger 500cc motorcycle. Most of the vintage Triumph motorcycles have the right-hand shifting. That's definitely different than what the standard is today, where all of the bikes shift on the left-hand side. Here we have a later Triumph Bonneville 750. I'm pretty sure this bike is from the 70s, and you can see it actually has the left-hand shifting. It also has the more linear side panels on it that differentiate it from the earlier bikes. I still think this one was really pretty with the black and silver paint scheme. Moving on, we have another Triumph Bonneville. I really like the purple and white paint scheme on this one. I'm not sure why this one does not have a headlight. Either it's not all the way through the restoration process, or it's set up like an old-time racer. In the background, you can see the red BSA motorcycle. I don't know much about these, but this is a very cleanly styled bike. It was also set up without the headlight, just like the Triumph next to it. The last of the British bikes I'm featuring in this video is the 850 Norton Commando. Like the Bonneville, this is another truly iconic British motorcycle. I honestly think that the reason these are so popular is because of how pretty they are. These are just a beautifully designed motorcycle. And I think a testament to the original design is that they continue to produce bikes called Norton Commandos even today. Looking at the Ducatis, not surprisingly, there was no shortage of bright red Ducatis at the show. The first one up here is a more modern classic. This is the Ducati GT 1000. I have one of these in gunmetal gray, and these are more of a gentleman's monster. And surprisingly, the value on this model has really gone up in recent years. The next Ducati here is a beautiful Mike Hailwood Special. In my mind, it is hard to beat the color scheme of Italian red and green with the gold wheels. This bike currently does not have the lower center section of the fairing on it, but it is a beautiful, beautiful machine. In the upper level parking lot, there was a gorgeous 900 Super Sport. This was the fully faired version. I've always thought these were a beautiful bike, and I would love to review one of these on the channel. The next Ducati up is a 907 IE Paso. This bike was the successor to the 750 Paso and the 906 Paso. What makes the styling a little bit controversial on these is the lack of a windshield where we're used to it on a sport bike. Instead, it is a panel that is painted the same red as the bodywork, and it gives the bike a unique look. I really didn't like this look when I was younger, but over the years it's kind of grown on me, and I think it has a cool, funky look to it now. Bucking the trend of all red Ducatis, here we have a beautiful 750 Sport. This one has what looks to me to be a custom high mount pipe, and it also does not have the side panels that you would typically see on the bike, but it was really neat to see this machine at the show. Moving away from the Ducatis, we have this beautiful little Laverda 750 SF. This is another classic Italian bike. What's interesting to me is that the engine in these Laverdas looks very similar to the engine found in the Honda 305 Superhawks. When I think of Laverdas, I think of sport models, and this one actually has the dual drum brakes front and back, and so that was a little surprising to me as well. The final Italian bike up here is this beautiful Moto Morini 3.5. It was a 350cc V-twin. This was the first classic bike that greeted me as I entered the show. I thought this one looked so nice in the red and black, and it's just a cool little Italian sport bike. I once had the opportunity to buy a Moto Morini. I was just out of high school, and there was one sitting alongside the road for sale, but it was already missing some parts. And at the time, there were no Moto Morini dealerships around, there was no internet, and back in the early 90s, parts availability was a real issue on these. Well guys, that wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you had a European bike at the show and I didn't feature it in this video or I missed it, please forgive me. There were so many cool classic bikes at the show and I couldn't possibly photograph and include every one of them. In part 1 of this video series, we looked at the classic Japanese motorcycles that were at the Martin Moto show. If you missed that video when it came out, you can click the link above to see the Japanese motorcycle highlights. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and until next time, enjoy the ride.